97.3 ESPN.com. Like I said, Scott Grayson will be in for me on Wednesday and Thursday with Pete. Those guys will get you ready for the Eagles and the Cardinals. We'll talk a little bit about that, but I want to take a look back at the Shady Bowl, and a lot of A's in this one for the winning team from a couple of interesting cats who got some A's. We'll check out how Chip Kelly did. He had a string of 3 straight Fs. Chip Kelly did. We'll find out where he fell in on the list along with Billy Davis, Sam Bradford. But let's bring Scott Grayson into the conversation, Scott. And we like to start out because you always get great sound after the game. You talk to Ed Reynolds and Malcolm Jenkins and Brandon Graham, defensive guys. And I want to kind of get your take on what they believe has changed about this defense the last couple of weeks that was getting scorched and just torched every single week over that 3-game stretch.
Yeah, it was interesting. The first one who really kind of got going with some of what the reasons why they're different now versus where they were a few weeks ago. Malcolm Jenkins kind of alluded more to the accountability that the players are having with each other in their team meeting rooms and things like that. Remember, he's the one who kind of was questioning why the coaches weren't holding people more accountable. So it seems like, and he also said the leaders really started to become more vocal. So it sounds, if you piece it all together, like the leaders sort of took it upon themselves to start calling other players out and holding them accountable. And, Malcolm Jenkins is the first, to hold himself accountable at times throughout the season. So that was the first thing that really kind of came out of it. And then some of the defensive guys started saying how Sam Bradford has become more vocal. You can clearly tell that that's not his comfort zone. And they said he's been coming out and being more vocal before some games. And to me, I think that really says a lot about how this team has turned a corner. And they really do, when you're in that locker room, feel like a bigger unit. The other thing to point out is the shirts. A lot of them had them hanging in their lockers, or they were wearing them as they walked out. 53 angry men. Those shirts came from owner Jeffrey Lurie. He gave those to them sometime this week, or even before the game. I didn't nail down exactly when that was, but those shirts were given out by the owner. I think Lurie has really taken it upon himself to try to get this team to really fight for a playoff berth here and potentially something more if they can turn the corner. So that's kind of what it sounds like had really helped them turn the corner the last few weeks.
Scott, I want to go back to something you said that perked my ears up. Some of the defensive guys told you that Sam Bradford has been more vocal. Is that a surprise? I mean, that's not his personality, right?
Yeah, and they alluded to that. They said it's not his personality. You can tell he's not comfortable doing it. But what they basically said was you can tell he feels like he needs to do it, and that's where he's kind of taking it with the offense at this point. I think, if you can kind of piece it all together, like I said, it sounds like leaders on both sides of the ball. And on the offense, there really isn't any. So Bradford is trying to be that guy on the offense and kind of lead with his voice a little bit, which is not the way he's ever been in his career, nor is I don't think he's ever been asked to be that guy. But that's the way he's trying to take it upon himself at this point now to help this team get over the hump.
I think that's an interesting dynamic here. You also talked to some offensive guys, including Nelson Aguilar, Ryan Matthews, Jordan Matthews. And, look, that's a lot of young guys, Aguilar and Matthews. Aguilar caught his first touchdown pass, and you have a real cool tweet about what he did after the game that really has nothing to do with the game to show you what kind of person he is. But can Aguilar become a wild card over these last 3 games? Is he finally over the ankle? Is he feeling more like an NFL player? I mean, what kind of sense do you get from Aguilar moving forward?
It's interesting. I feel like Jordan Matthews really kind of opened my eyes a little more to what the athlete is dealing with at this point in his career. Because I asked Jordan about how, if he could flash back to last year when he caught his first touchdown pass, did that help shake a monkey off his back? Did it kind of get him going? And he's a guy who's pretty humble, but he said, listen, Nelson's going through a lot and trying to overcome that injury. And the way, people overlook that. They see a guy who's back, he's on the injury report only as a probable, and they think, oh, he's a guy who's going to go out there and perform. There's no excuse anymore. And Nelson won't use that as an excuse, and Nelson even said that to me afterwards. But, he said, here's a guy who's just starting to come away from a high ankle sprain. And Chip Kelly answered my question about that, too, after the game. In the same manner, the high ankle sprain is quickly overlooked when he's out there. And I think we're starting to see a guy who may be coming around. And I've given him some harsh grades in the past. I still want to hold him accountable for those drops he had, and he acknowledged that as well after the game. But I think maybe this guy, over the next few weeks, can start to become more of a factor downfield, which is honestly what he was in college and what he should be here. So I think we're starting to see maybe some of that coming.
Grayson's grades, Dennis Kelly got an F. I was listening on the radio, and I heard him with back-to-back holding penalties. He didn't play very well. Kelly obviously 1 F there. But I want to move up the list to the D spot. You got DeMarco Murray and Ryan Matthews. Now, Matthews, obviously, first time he played in about a month. Murray, I know that he ducked out of there yesterday. Did you see him? Did he seem agitated? What was Murray's kind of presence in that locker room, even though he didn't talk to anybody?
Yeah, I really can't comment on that because by the time I got in the locker room after Chip was done talking, you're right, he was gone. I mean, his stuff was out of there. He was out of there. And, I think he's trying not to be a distraction to this team, which is hard to say after he, went up and talked to Jeffrey Lurie after the previous game. I get the sense, he's really trying. You look at him versus LeSean McCoy. Look how LeSean McCoy played out the week. Look how DeMarco Murray played out the week. I think DeMarco is really trying not to be a distraction to this team, and he just can't help it. And to sort of help his cause there, he just got out of there rather than say something he didn't want to say or shouldn't say or could hurt this team at this point because, ultimately these guys all have the same goal. They want to win a Super Bowl. And, certainly we can look at this team and say they're not quite ready to get to that point yet, but there's still a few weeks left. And some of the guys said they're starting to get hot. I just looked at DeMarco Murray bolting out of there as a guy who just didn't want to get in the way of what this team accomplished.
Scott Grayson, Grayson's grades over at 97.3ESPN.com for all the grades. Billy Davis, you've been tough on him too. Are you impressed with the way the defense has responded after 2 weeks of awful football?
Yeah, I don't know what those 2 weeks were. I don't know what that team was that was out there. I saw the guys with the names on the jerseys that sound familiar, but whatever that was not the Eagles' defense in those 2 games. I feel like the last 2 games have definitely been more of what they have been. I still, this past game against the Bills, they had the big takeaway on the interception. They had the special teams turnover. They didn't get back to Tyrod Taylor as much as I had hoped. And part of that is because I just think in certain spots I'd really like to see Billy Davis dial up a blitz, and he just doesn't do it. He wants to play more in coverage. He wants to force the quarterback to hold the ball too long and get back to him that way. Some of these young guys who are mobile like a Taylor, they can buy themselves some time. They can get out of there. And that's my one criticism of Billy Davis right now is that I just wish that in certain spots, some of these times when they have trouble getting off the field on third down, dial up a blitz, send an extra guy, try to get back there a little faster. And I just didn't see that. Now, in this game, I did give Billy Davis credit because I thought the game plan and the way that they were coached up to stay in their lanes and not allow LeSean McCoy to cut back and really break free and get a big run. He had one. That was it, over 20 yards. I thought that was good, as well as Sammy Watkins, other than the one touchdown pass, was not that much of a factor either, and he's their, I would say their go-to young receiver at this point. So I thought that Billy Davis did a pretty good job overall.
No doubt. You gave Chip a B. I thought, he has coached much better, and I think a lot of it is phasing Murray out. Although Murray was second on the team in carries yesterday. He didn't do a lot with them.
I did notice that.
Yeah, he was second, and a lot of people were reporting that he was dropped to 4th on the depth chart. That didn't seem to be the case. But Fletcher Cox, you gave an A. Michael Kendricks an A. Also Malcolm Jenkins and the 2 specialists, Donnie Jones and Caleb Sturgis. Sturgis, by the way, 3 field goals. Give him credit. He's 7 for 9, 16 on the extra points. He's steadying himself. But Jones, this guy has been an unsung hero of this team.
Yeah, I really wanted to single those 2 guys out because they don't win that game without the things that those 2 guys did. And you think back to when Cody Parkey went down the game after that, Caleb Sturgis had an awful debut. So many people were calling for him to get replaced after one outing. And he has come a long way, I think, to really becoming a reliable kicker and a guy who, when he goes out there, you're expecting him to make the kick at this point. At least I am. He had a big one to make in order to win the game as well late in the game, and he put it right down the middle. Donnie Jones, as you said, I think it was overlooked what he did by most fans who just saw him. I mean, he was booting the ball. He was every time the returner for Buffalo was backtracking. And make no mistake about it, he had great hang time on the one that was dropped. I think he felt the pressure coming that was muffed that ended up becoming a recovery for the Eagles. The special teams, when this team was doing good things last year, the special teams was solid. They were reliable. And I think that's back to where they're getting at this point, which allows the rest of the team to do its job. And we're seeing certain things starting to come around and be more reliable, more consistent. But those 2 guys, I thought, played a huge role in that win yesterday.
Scott Grayson, he'll be in for me on Wednesday and Thursday with Pete. Those guys will have plenty more on the Eagles and the Cardinals and this NFC East race. For more of Grayson's grades, check out 97.3ESPN.com. Great stuff, Scott.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.